Kathy Andrews. Today we have with us Randy Smith with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Aaron Yater with the Illinois Natural History Survey, and Mike Sertle with Ducks Unlimited. Aaron, there's a lot of research that's taking place at the Forbes station with regards to waterfowl, wetlands, shorebirds. Do you want to give us an overview about what's going on now and what we can look forward to seeing from that?
So yeah, we have multiple projects at the Forbes station. We're getting ready to start our third year of a wood duck post-breeding ecology study, where we're putting radio transmitters on birds and on wood ducks and following them around while they're here. We're also putting cellular transmitters on these birds, and so we can see, in fact, last year we had about 10 that went to we followed their migration all the way south into Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. 6 of those birds have returned to us back here now. We had one hanging out over around Champaign, 2 or 3 hanging out around Lincoln, and one actually came back here to Havana at the Emiquoin complex. So the birds are moving around. It's fun to watch to see how they go. We monitored 10 migration events with the cellular transmitters, and when the birds took off, they took off early in the morning, around somewhere around midnight or 1 a.m. and they flew for about 6 hours, and their average length on that flight was about 250 miles. So when they left Central Illinois, they took off and they went down to Tennessee or Missouri, hung out for a week or so, and then continued on down. So those big jumps were 250 miles at a time. So pretty interesting things that we're finding out with those wood ducks. We're also going to be putting on next spring, we're going to put transmitters on scaup, on bluebills, and look to see what their jumps are like when they take off from Illinois and they come back. These transmitters are supposed to last around 300 days, so we're going to get a spring migration, a nesting season, and a fall migration on them to see, try to help us understand their movements and why there's more bluebills in the Illinois River in the spring than there is in the fall. We're also putting transmitters on some rails in this fall and next spring, trying to look at these secretive marsh birds that we really know very, very little about, and their populations are very small, and so trying to get some idea on those birds. We're entering our 72nd year of aerial waterfowl surveys, as long as the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't affect those surveys. It'll be my 16th year as a observer in the airplane of doing those surveys. And in the last couple of years, we've also started some shorebird surveys along the river to evaluate habitat and the number of those water birds that are coming through the Illinois Valley. We're looking at true metabolizable energy of foods in different waterfowl species. So how many calories does a different species of a duck assimilate from a different species of moist soil food or duck food? Currently looking at pintails, green-winged teal, and mallards, hopefully looking at blue-winged teal here this fall as well. We have students that are evaluating the trematode parasites in the bluebills that are affecting their survival up on the upper Mississippi River on pools 7, 8, and 9 in Wisconsin and Iowa. We have a student finishing his last year of a PhD project on Canada geese in Chicago. He has cellular transmitters on those birds up in Chicago, and looking at the local birds and the migrant Canada geese that actually come into the city and spend time in the very urban environments, and how those birds move in and around O'Hare and Midway airports, and looking at ways we can alleviate those potential conflicts with humans. I'm sure I've forgotten a few of the other studies, but I'll stop with that.
All right, well, we really appreciate every time that the survey staff have been contributing articles to Outdoor Illinois Wildlife Journal that are summarizing some of the work that's going on, though. Those are really interesting, and I think it's important that our viewers, our readers, understand that there's a lot of work going on that's trying to improve our knowledge of our waterfowl and wetland resources. So we'll look forward to some more stories on all those projects that are coming up. Okay, Mike, last time that I think our paths crossed, we were talking about Oakwood Bottoms and some of the work that was going on down there. So I know that there's probably a lot of other projects that DU has been undertaking since then. You want to give us some, just recap some of the more recent restoration projects that DU's been involved with?
Sure. Yeah, we've wrapped up a number of projects recently. Others, due to flooding, have been delayed for a year. We're hoping to get back out to them here pretty soon. But, you know, as we look, as I said, Northern Illinois, looking at breeding habitat program, we've recently wrapped up some work with Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge, Open Lands, McHenry County Conservation District, a number of other partner organizations up there through a small federal grant to complete some wetland and grassland restorations. Pardon me. We've also started partnership or supporting Pheasants Forever and the Fish and Wildlife Service Partners for Fish and Wildlife program in East Central Illinois in some of those areas Randy had mentioned earlier about being important pothole complexes. And we got a number of future projects up there in the Northeast too. We're going to be looking at new projects for properties that will become part of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. Look at some projects with the DNR staff in Lake and McHenry counties, and working with the Forest Reserve District of Kane County on some of their preserve properties. Additionally, Northeast Illinois is going to be included in a $1 million federal proposal being submitted in 2 weeks that will capture Wisconsin, Northeast Illinois, Northern Indiana, Michigan, and actually part of Ohio, focused based on science and action plans, like Randy mentioned earlier, the Illinois Wetlands Campaign, to increase waterfowl nesting here in the Great Lakes. A majority of Illinois waterfowl come from Prairie Canada, the boreal forest, the U.S. prairies, but we do receive a decent amount of birds from the U.S. Great Lakes. So very important for us. As we look further south, we have managed to get some projects done that weren't as what do I want to say? They were more flood resistant, shall I say. They took rain, but they didn't take river water. So we helped the Shawnee National Forest in Southern Illinois complete the construction of a brand new green tree reservoir unit. So it is seasonally flooded oak hardwood timber, and that is part of their Oakwood Bottoms hunting area, a waterfowl hunting area down there. We also partnered with Mississippi Valley Hunters and Fishermen's Association and the Fish and Wildlife Service and the city of Quincy to help complete a Bangert Park restoration. And we were able to secure, as part of our $1 million Conserving the Illinois River Legacy NACA federal grant, allocate the Wetlands Initiative some funding to help support work at the Sioux and West Dixon Waterfowl Refuge near Hennepin. If the rivers come down, which we hope they will here next week, and I'm sure since I said that, I'll jinx us and we'll get a bunch of rain. But we have a number of projects, as I said, have been 2 or 3 years now, so we're hoping they're going to start getting built. We have projects to do with Cypress Creek National Wildlife Refuge, looking at some potential acquisitions to add public holding there. We have 3 large oxbow restorations in the Big Muddy River bottoms there in the Shawnee National Forest coming ahead of us. My counterpart, Dane Kramer, is working on 2 new projects here at Horseshoe Lake State Park in Granite City, Illinois, in the St. Louis Metro East. Some really cool projects. We're working on new wetland upgrades and restorations at Two Rivers National Wildlife Refuge at the literal confluence of the Mississippi and Illinois rivers. And then a number of projects up Illinois River Valley. We'll be working with Randy and other DNR staff on various projects at Sangonoy Fish and Wildlife Area, Anderson Lake, Rice Lake, Woodford, and Donnelly Depew. There's projects at each one of those that we'll be taking a look at, in addition to working with the Nature Conservancy at their Emaquan Preserve. And if we can get all that stuff rolling, then we'll be hopefully working on what I had mentioned earlier in other parts of northern and northwest Illinois. So hopefully the water goes down and we can stay on that average of a 3-year timeline.
Wow, that is an amazing list of projects that you've got going on there. And we're going to really look forward to hearing a lot about those as they progress along and we start seeing some boots on the ground action taking place. So thank you for that. Randy, what else is going on with the Waterfowl program?
Yeah, we're busy. We've got a lot of stuff going on all the time. That is the regulation stuff has taken up a lot of our time for the last year and a half now. But that doesn't mean our other stuff stops. So my program, the Wetland Wildlife Program, we're also responsible for coordinating the aerial waterfowl surveys. So those things are ongoing. And like Aaron mentioned, hopeful that they'll be able to be conducted this year and that the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't put a hold on those for any reason. We also coordinate waterfowl banding in the state. So really the only species that we band here as an agency are Canada geese and wood ducks. Wood duck banding will start a little bit later in the summer. Canada goose banding is just finishing up. I think we've got one more roundup next week. Had to change our protocol from past years a little bit, again, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Much smaller crew sizes than in the past. We weren't able to include any volunteers this year. And also, crews were required to use PPE and maintain social distancing as much as possible, which is a challenge when working with when banding geese. Anyway, you kind of are forced to work in close proximity. But despite those challenges, I think we had a really good banding season. We'll have some numbers figured out in another week or two. But crews really worked their tails off to get on geese and to catch a good number of geese again this year. I guess from a program perspective, I'm involved in the migratory waterfowl stamp funds, the state duck stamp funds. So every time a hunter purchases a duck stamp in order to hunt waterfowl in Illinois, those all go into that fund, and those are split. I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but those are split up in between in-state projects and projects in Canada projects. I'm fairly heavily involved in the planning of those, and then also in the ranking of projects to determine which projects are funded and whatnot, and helping folks coordinate, get those off the ground. So that's ongoing. Folks are submitting applications for maintenance projects right now. So that's projects to repair infrastructure, levees, to replace a pump, to put riprap on a levee that might be eroded. So that takes up a fair amount of time. And then I guess just trying to coordinate with folks in terms of wetland management and try to provide guidance to our sites and our local biologists about what's going to hopefully work best to put habitat on the ground, to attract ducks for hunters and for wildlife viewers, and to try to put that opportunity out there for folks. So trying to work with sites as much as I can and identify sites that have maybe been, I don't want to say ignored, but maybe haven't received as much attention as they should have over in the past, and try to get some new projects off the ground too to rehabilitate sites that are in need of it. So yeah, always busy, always a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, it does sound like that. Thanks for that overview, and thanks for all the great work that you've been doing.